The GMWD LE08 2.0, terrible name, but a pretty good machine as a leg extension and leg curl may be the best value in its price range. Is it commercial quality? No. Did they actually test the weight ratios? No. But at least it's 3x3 with 1-inch holes, right? Not really. Still, quirks aside, it has a few very interesting and unique features, and I think it's probably the best option that sits between your budget ones that often have trade-offs and the bougie levels. As always, we're going to be making a lot of comparisons, so if any of the items we talk about interest you, I've linked them in the description, and those links, as well as our Patreon, are the best way to support the channel. All right, let's start with leg extensions, and somebody put this a little bit close to the wall. That footprint is something you'll want to take into consideration. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. This arm right here locks into 8 different positions. It's very easy to adjust with the built-in counterweight. I like to set it all the way forward, so all the way back, and then that gives me a pretty good stretch and starting position, but that stretch is going to be somewhat dependent on your build. So if you see this leg roller right here swings on an arc and it's adjustable to 9 different positions. So if you're at either of the extremes of the heights that GMWD says this will work for, you may get a little bit different stretch, but for Winnie at 5'6", and for me, we found that it works pretty well. All right, let me jump back in here. So for leg extensions and leg curls, I've found the resistance profile, the resistance curve to be pretty consistent and good overall. It is a little bit lighter at the start here than at the end, but the pivot point lines up with your knees, and that's great because it's not putting any extra stress on your joints. That's a big deal for everyone, but especially Winnie, because after years of playing soccer, just about every machine she uses outside of Prime Smart Arm is uncomfortable on her knees. That's one of the things I talked about in our Alibaba leg extension leg curl review. I joked that it was slowly destroying my knees, but for weeks after testing it, they legitimately did hurt. My favorite feature of the LE08 is the adjustable weight horn because it means less loading of plates. So let's say I put too much weight on here, which I would never admit as a man. Well, I can just pick up the weight horn and drop it into one of the other 2 positions to decrease the felt weight. GMWD has them listed as a 1-to-1 ratio in the shortest or lightest position, meaning if you have 100 pounds on here, you're pushing 100 pounds. The middle position being a 1.1 or 10% heavier, and the end or longest being a 1.2 or 20% heavier. But how do I explain this without going levels of nerdy never before seen? Is this where I tell you to subscribe? Their concept is right, their ratios are horribly wrong, but I don't think it really matters because it works as intended. When it's Winnie's turn to lift, we pull the weight horn back to decrease the weight, and when it's my turn, we push it forward to make it heavier, resulting in less swapping of plates. Now, it's not a perfect system for Winnie and I because our numbers can be drastically different, but it's so nice to be able to change the weight and slightly tweak it just by moving the weight horn. The issue is, and I'll preface this with a disclaimer because it's not a perfect test, I am just using a fish scale here, but the lightest or shortest position reduces your weight by around 55%, the middle around 45%, and the longest or heaviest around 30%. Don't be too hard on GMWD though. It's not like they tested it. Bet you they're real happy they sent this for review right now. The reason it works like that is because this linkage right here acts kind of like a cam. That you didn't think I'd figure out a way to curl on this thing, did you? So on most plate-loaded devices, without a system like this, the resistance is either gonna fall off at the start or at the end. But this smooths out the resistance profile some and extends your range of motion. All that means is you're probably gonna be loading more plates onto this than you thought you would, which is gonna be super impressive to your family that doesn't actually care. With a 330-pound weight capacity and a 10-inch weight horn, going heavy isn't going to be an issue. Just realize as you push it closer to its maximum weight capacity, you will get a little more flex in the leg roller, but it's built with 12-gauge steel. I think it's solid and the flex is minimal, and it's more of a product of the complexity of the machine and the components having some play between them rather than the tubing actually flexing. And I'd say it performs better than a lot of machines that cost a lot more money. I do think it's a good leg extension. I just probably take my complaints as nitpicks rather than deal breakers, but I'm trying to be thorough here so you know what you're getting. So it would be nice if you could tilt or angle this back pad. You can adjust the pad itself. It locks into 7 different positions, so it can be set depending on your build, and that's one of the changes they made from 1.0 into that 2.0 version. But for those of you that want to angle this, maybe because you want to get a deeper stretch on the rectus femoris, unfortunately, there's no way to. Now, you could just drill a hole in here, so it wouldn't be that hard for them to tweak this, maybe if they did a version 2.1. Still, overall, I like leg extensions on this. The handles are in a good place, so you can keep yourself anchored, and outside of my nitpicks, I think it works pretty well. To swap over to prone leg curls, there's just a single pop in here, and then you gotta kind of muscle it into position, but then it locks in well. It probably could be a little bit smoother, and I'm 98% sure we put it together right, but the directions are a little lacking. Once that's set, all you've got to do is set your starting position and the leg roller. I'm just going to guess right there right now. And then you're going to mount this thing, which is probably a terrible word choice for the position I'm in, but there's no non-awkward way to get on the lying leg curl. Now, for most of these machines, your thigh is going to be supported by the pad and your knee kind of hangs off on the end. But for this one, since you want to line up your knee with the pivot point, it'll probably end up sitting on the pad a little bit, which depending on your build and the weight you're moving may be uncomfortable to some people. For me, the pad's a little bit too long, but once in position, you've got a pretty good range of motion here. The resistance profile is consistent. It does fall off a little bit at the end here, but I find the 15-degree bends to be comfortable, and they're actually using 2 different foams here. So the chest or back pad is a little bit softer, which is nice because you don't want to be digging your chest into that thing. But for the seat and the leg roller, it's a little more firm, but it's not hard. And that's good too, because you want to be using something that's firm and supportive, but isn't killing your shins as they dig into them and you push. Having the seat be a little softer may help with the knee thing, but overall I find the pads to be comfortable, the handles are in a good spot, and there's a lot of adjustability, so leg curl should work well for anyone regardless of their build. And for the science-based guys about to feed the algorithm with comments about the superiority of seated leg curls, I prefer to do both if given the opportunity, but just like Winnie with her leg extensions, sometimes you just gotta find what works for you and fits your wants, needs, and space. But feel free to argue in the comments either way. My only complaint, well, besides the knee thing, is that the chest pad can be a little jumpy depending on how you're distributing your weight, but overall leg curls are pretty well executed and it's a solid machine. The build quality is better than expected. I've tested a few GMWD machines and I find that they either blow me away like they're multi-flight or I'm underwhelmed. The red finish really pops. They do have an all black version as well. The pop pins and everything else just locks in very easily. The LE08 is solid and heavy. It's not something that will be moving around during use or that you'll be moving very often. Ask me how I know. I found this to work well for unilateral movements, and the storage post is a nice touch. If you're looking at this thing thinking, I bet I could add band pegs to give me some band resistance, or maybe a leg roller because you want to do, I don't know, Bulgarian split squats and make this the center of pain and misery for you. Well, it looks 3x3 with 1-inch holes, and it kind of is. So the feet are 3x3 1-inch, and so is this upright, but this is 2x3 and that's 2x2, and it's kind of all over the place. But it's the whole size that matters, right? Well, those are kind of even more random. But for the most part, where you'd want to actually attach things, it is 3x3 1-inch-ish. So here's what I mean. This is a 1-inch pin from Rogue Fitness, and it'll fit here, but not there. This is a 1-inch pin from Rep Fitness, and it's metric, so a little bit smaller, and it will go anywhere. So I guess the moral of the story is the holes are a little inconsistent and undersized. It's not the first time I've seen this on imported equipment, but as long as you know that, you can get a little more functionality out of your LE08. But the real question is it worth the $999.99 or $950 with code GLUCK saving you 5% at GMWD? Well, this completely real customer review seems to think so. I'd say if it fits your wants, needs, and space, it's a pretty good machine. Just keep in mind the footprint is a little larger than you may think since you need space around it to get on and off the machine and load plates, and then it gets a little bit longer as you fold it out. Price close to $1,000. I'm not sure you can call it a budget piece, which is what GMWD is known for. After all, GMWD and Mikolo have several pieces priced well below this, with the Towerette being the one currently riding the hype train. So let me know if you want to see a review on that one. Now, budget machines aren't going to be built as robust as this. They'll have thinner gauge tubing that they're using. The fit and finish won't be quite as nice, and they typically have trade-offs. A very common one being there'll be a lot of flex in that leg roller and they won't be as adjustable. To upgrade from here, you're probably looking at a selectorized machines, and those are nice because you don't have to load plates, but we reviewed the cheapest one you can buy, and I can't say I was particularly impressed by our Alibaba adventure. Which probably means you're looking at something like Temple of Gains or something similar, at which point you've more than doubled your budget. So is this perfect? No, but it may very well be the best option between those two extremes. Thank you so much to our Patreons. Without you, this channel would have been gone a long time ago, and thanks for watching.